Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
This is welcome to Bhagavatam Bites. This is some members of my ladies mentee group. So we have Vasha, Sophie, who don't want to be in the middle, Devaki, Ashrita, and Vanamai, who just got it. That's why she looks a bit flashed. Okay, we're reading from Canto 3, Chapter 31, Text 6. Let's say the invocation together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Text 6. Bitten again and again all over the body by the hungry worms in the abdomen itself, the child suffers terrible agony because of his tenderness. He thus becomes unconscious moment after moment because of the terrible condition. Does anyone know what this is referring to?
Is it the child in the womb?
Yes. Yes. Any other points? Mummies, any points? The mummies are on the sofa, by the way.
The fetus is suffering in the womb.
Mm-hmm. But it's quite definitely when I was like in school or the way you educate, you don't get told this.
No.
It is quite like when I first read it, it was like, huh? Because it's like it's like a romanticized image. The child is there and it's fine and doesn't matter what's going on outside. But when we read this and other class or whatever, it actually does affect what you eat, what the child's hearing, and how the mother's feeling, if it's upset or angry or stressed. And just living in that womb isn't like a 5-star hotel or so. They try to make it out like it's, according to the Bhagavatam, it's actually a hellish condition. It makes it out. I mean, and Vasha, we found out, creates babies. Let me just clarify that. How that she was test tube babies, and they don't. I mean, they don't explain. Oh, okay, that's concise. Okay, Vanamai, do you want to read the next paragraph?
Okay. Purport. The miserable condition of material existence is not only felt when we come out of the womb of the mother, but is also present within the womb. Miserable life begins from the moment the living entity begins to contact his material body. Unfortunately, we forget this experience and do not take the miseries of birth very seriously. In Bhagavad Gita, therefore, it is specifically mentioned that one should be very alert to understand the specific difficulties of birth and death. Just as during the formation of this body, we have to pass through so many difficulties within the womb of the mother, at the time of death there are also many difficulties. As described in the previous chapter, one has to transmigrate from one body to another, and the transmigration into the bodies of dogs and hogs is especially miserable. But despite such miserable conditions, due to the spell of Maya, we forget everything and become enamored by the present so-called happiness, which is described as actually no more than a counteraction to distress.
Any thoughts? Anything stood out?
You know how the 4 miseries of life, birth, old age, disease and death, I always found the others easy to understand, but birth I was always a bit like, birth? But I guess it's the fact that we're coming back, we don't want to take birth again, and the fact that actually birth isn't a pleasant thing in itself.
Yeah, even though we're covered, so we don't remember, but it's not the most, I mean, I don't know, and even giving birth, is it like easy? No, I mean, it's interesting. We just did Janice did a safe delivery ceremony for one devotee, and she didn't give birth not long after, and she said, and it was a second child, and she said, I don't know, she felt, the ceremony must have helped, whatever. Literally, I think she said 15 minutes at the most or something, 20, and she said, done, baby was there. It was like, wow. But some devotees, and not just devotees, but you hear them, they have contractions for days. Mm-hmm. It's not just, a couple of hours and done, and Krishna. But this last sentence is interesting, that so-called happiness is described as actually no more than a counteraction to distress. Does anyone understand what that means, though? Prabhupada mentions that a lot in other places. That happiness is just a counteraction to distress.
Like the temporary happiness that we think we get is just the absence of distress, not that we're actually being happy.
Yeah. So Prabhupada gives the example that if someone's been pushed underwater, like forcing, you're struggling, imagine you can't breathe, and then they pull you up, you're like, oh my God, how relieved would you be? And then you get pushed back down. So Prabhupada uses that example, and he says that's material life. That in between that pushing down and struggling and really suffering, sometimes you can draw a breath and be like, oh yeah, life's okay, yeah, I'm happy, yeah. Mm-hmm. Before Maya just kicks you down again. Interesting, no? Mm-hmm. To see it. I mean, it's not like, do you think that means that Hare Krishnas or whatever are pessimistic? Is that a pessimistic way of viewing? Mm-hmm. For example, if someone who is like your work colleagues, if they're like, what is that? You're saying, happiness is just in between, is a glimpse in between distress. What would people who aren't devotees think? Well, how would you explain that?
I think it does sound pessimistic.
It does.
But if you look at the reality of what life is and the true goal of life and true happiness, then it's not pessimistic.
Yeah.
It's reality.
Realistic. Yeah. But it can be seen like that. It can be like, you guys just focus on birth, old age, disease and death. Oh, you think it's distress all the time. But yeah, if you analyse it, it's true, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually
I guess like everyone sees the external part, like the mother or like the mother and the father wants to be happy, they want to have a family, they want to have a baby and everything, but no one really realises what the baby's going through in the womb, like, because it's so like internal. So it's like the happiness is a covering of what's actually happening inside, like this distress.
Yeah.
And even the mother has to go through that distress when giving birth, I guess. But,
Yes, we have notes. Okay, Ashmita, do you read just the next verse?
Mm-hmm. Owing to the mother's eating bitter, pungent foodstuffs, or food which is too salty or too sour, the body of the child incessantly suffers pains which are almost intolerable.
Any thoughts on that?
Just being conscious about, the soul inside the womb. It's, we all have, like, for example, if you are pregnant and, we're eating, what we want, but, Prabhupada is here making us conscious that, what we're eating or, what we want to eat is actually having, an impact on the soul inside the womb.
Yeah, I mean, they use
detail here that
you
don't think of really.
Yeah.
So what is good for the mother's tongue is not good for the baby.
But what about if, as a mother, like, understand you get cravings?
Yeah.
Then, and that is something you need to, fulfill. But meaning, if you get a craving, you really need that, no? It's not like, forget it. Then what, And some of the cravings can be a bit crazy, no? I've heard. I don't know. But it's good, like you said, to be mindful. Because It's so funny. Just the other day on social media, something came up. Someone put that in the 70s and 60s, maybe even before, women would smoke and wouldn't think anything of it. Even health professional, it wasn't thought that's harming the baby to smoke. I mean, while you're pregnant and that, or whatever excess, or drink or whatever. But it does, and so it's interesting that ignorance is no longer there now. Like, I know people, I'm sure, still do it, but now we get it. Oh, you're pregnant or whatever. Like that, people just don't know. They're not going to think, oh, if I have something, what is it, too sour or put too much salt or whatever, spicy, whatever, that's going to affect my baby. As a mother, you might be thinking, I'm nourishing the baby because I'm eating. I'm making sure it's do you want to read the very small book of everything?
All descriptions of the child's bodily situation in the womb of the mother are beyond our conception. It is very difficult to remain in such a position, but still the child has to remain. Because his consciousness is not very developed, the child can tolerate it, otherwise he would die. That is the benediction of Maya, who endows the suffering body with the qualifications for tolerating such terrible tortures.
Anything stood out or?
We have no control at all. Even the suffering, we have to suffer, we have to go through it.
It's interesting that it says the benediction of Maya. The child's going through so much pain, but when it in the last purport it said when the child comes out, then it's forgotten all the pain that that they've gone through.
And also, what is it saying? It is difficult to remain in such a position, like referring to how the baby's arched back and sitting, and Prabhupada just said, I think it may be coming up in this, or just say that actually it's not comfortable. All these things I never only read, I understood, but because you just see it as the baby's so cute, so comfortably sitting, but Prabhupada says actually its back is arched, and it's constantly like that until it's ready to come out. But imagine that if you just said, just sit like that even for like an hour or whatever. I mean, let alone 9 months. Well, does it move before 9 months? No.
It can move in different positions.
But imagine that. You just don't get that in the mainstream media or just education. It's more like, it's happy, it's secure, it's safe in that bag, which is what it is. In the womb, it's like, it's fine, but it could be seen as controversial, these things. People are like, no, that's not how it is. But alright, maybe last one. Varsha, do you want to read the verse?
Placed within the amnion and covered outside by the intestines, the child remains lying on one side of the abdomen, his head turned towards his belly, and his back and neck arched like a bow.
So that's what I was saying, that how the baby's sitting, and we just read this in the previous, literally it's here. Prabhupada says in the previous verse, if the baby is a male, it moves to the right side, and if it's a female, it moves to the left side. Interesting. Does anyone have any experience of that? No?
I'm just trying to remember.
I know. We thought that was interesting. And Johnny said he was saying next time he does a ceremony, so he's going to ask them, what side is the baby? But that's what Prabhupada says. The female is the left, and then the male moves to the right. Interesting. Okay, Jenny,
If a grown man were put into such a condition as the child within the abdomen, completely entangled in all respects, it would be impossible for him to live even a few seconds. Unfortunately, we forget all these sufferings and try to be happy in this life, not caring for the liberation of the soul from the entanglement of birth and death. It is an unfortunate civilization in which these matters are not plainly discussed to make people understand the precarious condition of material existence.
Now that's a good point, isn't it? Like I was saying, if I said, right, today in the meeting, like even for half an hour, you guys are just gonna sit in that position, wouldn't it be awkward?
Yeah.
Even if you do yoga. And Prabhupada says, yeah, if you put a grown man, it would be like being put into jail or something, like torture chamber or something. But that's how the child is. Anything else that stood out?
I guess it's interesting to think because we all go through that stage, right? But obviously, like, I guess for us to come to this material world, we would have been thinking about our own sense enjoyment rather than thinking about all these sufferings, which we've probably now forgotten. So it's interesting to read more about it.
Yeah, that's what they said, it that Maya, well, blesses you to forget. Otherwise, yeah, you'd be like, oh my God. But, and I don't want to misquote, but there is, it may be coming up, we understand from the scriptures that you do have remembrance. I think it's up until, I have to look this up, 7 months. There is an understanding, and then as it's getting time to, because you can actually come out at 7 months and be okay, it does disappear, but there is a kind of remembrance. Yeah. You have to look that up. But yeah, it does. By the time you come out, it's gone. You don't remember it. So that's another suffering, because you're in that and you're remembering, I'm a jiva. What am I doing here? You know, that's my point. That it's worse because you are having some remembrance of it. Imagine how that feels like. Like we were just saying just before we started recording, that if you see people who have been part of the movement or the temple and then they go away, and then when they meet devotees again or they come back, there is a certain, I wasted so much time, or why did I leave? Why did I go and do those things? Whatever they go to do. And that's just on the level of here, like life, let alone if you were in the womb and you're like, where am I? Oh my God, you know, I'm back like this. Can you imagine that? Like you just think of like that. It's dark, it's, I don't know, is it? There's no water. Is there water? I don't even know. In the womb? Yeah.
Fluid.
And then you're getting food from the umbilical cord, and then you're like, and obviously however the mother's acting, so if however she's moving or whatever's going on, and you're, yeah, imagine, and you're like, oh my God, I'm back here. You'd make an effort to get, I would have thought, to get serious. And Prabhupada says, kind of like the spirit soul gets a bit like, oh, I'm not coming back. But then you lose that by the time you're born. You lose that knowledge. That's the point. Okay. Alright, we're going to end it. Thank you for the lovely ladies. They're not normally this quiet. I just want to say that. But I know that everyone can sit on camera and just speak. So thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Okay, see everyone next time. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.